Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Femininja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. Boy, do I have a wonderful guest for you today. Her name is Josie Warren. She is a Hashimoto's expert, as well as a chronic illness and autoimmune disorder expert and teacher. She is also a Hashimoto's survivor. When her own experience of struggling with multiple autoimmune disorders that eventually led to her hitting rock bottom, she realized that there had to be a better way to live, and she had to take matters into her own hands, which launched her on her own path of health and healing. She became a teacher, coach, founder, and owner of the Hashimoto's Fix, where she helps others cure their Hashimoto's disease naturally. Josie, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Great. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for having me. I appreciate you letting me speak here today.
And I'm sorry for getting your name wrong. I was so excited that I got the introduction with all my scribbles that I just jumped right in there. So called you
No,
Josie.
no problem at all. No problem at all.
You have an amazing story to tell. So I'm just going to turn it over to you and tell the audience what you went through
Mhm.
and why you are so passionate about helping others with either Hashimoto's, other autoimmune disorders, migraines, chronic illnesses, that type of thing. Help them cure themselves naturally.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Let's see, where do we get started here? I'm going to start with myself in childhood. And I have found, I'd like to say in the beginning, that those of us who have had a chronic illness, such as chronic pain, migraines, asthma, or have had autoimmune conditions or depression or anxiety or other mental
Mhm.
health conditions, we're all people of the same cloth. So I cut from the same cloth as all of you who have had those conditions out there. And we are all people who have been through life experiences and stressors and just weren't well wired to handle the ups and downs and the stressors of life. And my story starts off just that same way. I was the little girl who cried when I saw a butterfly that was dead on the sidewalk, or
Mm.
when the cat would go missing, or when a sibling was born, or when parents were fighting, or when we moved, or etc. All these life events that would happen. I did not know how to handle them. We're all big feelers, those of us with these conditions, and maybe people might call empaths, and don't
Mhm.
know what to do with all the feelings that we have and unfortunately suppress them. So as I got through life and continued to get older, I suppressed all the emotional experience of the stress I was going through in my life. And I didn't have anything too outside the norm from anybody else. Parents who fought from time to time, a couple moves. My dad did struggle with addiction and alcoholism,
Mm.
which was very sad for me. And I actually lost him when I was about 15. And
Oh.
so at that point, I already had quite a bit of lifetime of suppressed stress, and
Mhm.
my body and my health was showing that. I was the kid who had a lot of sinus infections
Mm.
and maybe ear infections and allergies. And when my dad passed away, that stress of his death kind of propelled me into even more noted health conditions. I started to
Mhm.
get things like arthritis, anxiety, and an eating disorder. And this all was happening when I was in high school, but didn't heed the warning signs. Clearly, look in
Mm.
retrospect, I can see all of my health conditions were telling me, flashing sign, Josie, you're not handling your stress well. Your body is getting overloaded. But I did not listen. And
Mhm.
so continued off into college, continued to have heartbreaks and things and suppressed all of that stress. And by the time I graduated from undergrad, I had full blown Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune disorder where your immune system attacks your thyroid. Now, didn't heed that warning either. Just started doing some restrictive food diets and more supplements and saw some specialists and just kept forging on, pushing everything down and continuing to move forward.
Mhm.
I thought maybe being a therapist would be a really good solution for my issues. So I went to graduate school, became a licensed professional counselor, started working in the addictions field at the Betty Ford Center out of Palm Springs, California. Here, their outpost in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And again, continued to suppress my stress and continue to get more chronic health conditions, things like lupus,
Oh.
common variable immune deficiency disorder. I was being hooked up to plasma infusions every week, was getting early stage MS, had Raynaud's, was only eating about 5 foods by the time I was about 26, 27 because of all my food sensitivities and food allergies. And I got to the point where I could no longer work. I just physically couldn't do it anymore with all these health conditions. And I was trying all the things. So anybody that's listening out there that's had these chronic health conditions, I know you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing the cleanses and the detoxes and all the different food diets
Mm-hmm.
to try to help myself. I was on medication. I was seeing different specialists and
Mm-hmm.
Western medicine specialists,
Mm-hmm.
and was really looking down all the avenues, yoga, meditation, anything I could think of to try to help my body to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, these conditions I'm speaking of, doctors said, Josie, there's no solution for these.
Mm-hmm.
Between my mental health conditions, my physical health conditions, these were all called chronic conditions, which
Mm-hmm.
means they're lifelong and
Right.
doctors don't have a solution for them.
So
Yeah.
I'm really curious because, obviously you were on a lot of medications.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And
The pharmacist
medication,
knew me.
you were
Yeah.
probably their best friend.
Yeah. We
Um,
knew the intimate details. Yeah.
yeah, unfortunately. But medication comes with side effects. And
Yeah.
sometimes when you get side effects, did they prescribe more medication for the side effects?
That's a great question. I mean, so here's what I found. It's kind of a like whack-a-mole situation where
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
work on one thing, but then it reveals another thing.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, I would get plasma infusions to help my immune system. Well, when I got plasma infusions to help strengthen my immune system, then my immune system would become stronger and the symptoms of other autoimmune conditions would become more present. So that's, I guess, would be my example of how you're trying to fix one thing, but then it also impacts another thing. And what I should have realized is that I was looking in the wrong place and that the
Mm-hmm.
things I was doing were clearly not working. And I
Mm-hmm.
actually finally had a Western medicine specialist sit me down. He here in Denver, and he was amazing, doctor. I am so thankful to him. And he sat me down and just said, Josie, he says, what you're doing isn't working. Like it's very clear, all your conditions, all your symptoms. He's like, all the things that people are prescribing you, it's not working. And that was a very much an awakening moment for me to
Mm-hmm.
start to realize that I needed to go on a completely different path. And that pathway is where I actually found true healing and is why I no longer have any of these conditions anymore.
So that is, in many ways, that really kind of surprises me because my own personal experience as a patient, as well as being in the medical profession for 40 years, is that you rarely hear that
Mm-hmm.
from an allopathic physician, from a Western medicine trained physician. They're really
Mm-hmm.
good at diagnosing and prescribing, but you rarely have somebody sit you down and say, this isn't working. So, you need to look in a different direction. Did he recommend looking into alternative healing modalities?
Great question. He did not. He was just, and you're right, he was very special, very unique, because that was not what I was hearing from
Mm-hmm.
others. And I really listened to him. So I just knew that I had to find that on my own. And thankfully, I was seeing another alternative practitioner who, after seeing my medical file, let me know that there was an organization here in Denver that she said, almost a direct quote, helps people like you who doctors have no explanation for. And that's really what I was at that time in my late
Mm-hmm.
20s. I was a complete medical mystery. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Doctors didn't know, alternative didn't know. And I was doing all kinds of things with worsening conditions, both mental health
Mm-hmm.
and my chronic illness, autoimmune. So I was open to where she had to share. And it's an
Mm-hmm.
organization, again, here in Denver called the New Life Center. And I came
Mm-hmm.
here with my stack full of diagnosis and paperwork, very skeptical because nothing had worked so far.
Mm-hmm.
But they said, yeah, we can help you.
Mm-hmm.
we're doing a clinical study for a year for people
Wow.
like you with chronic illness. So I joined their clinical study. Um, and that was the beginning of a complete transformation in my health and in
Mm-hmm.
my life, and is the reason I now work here at a New Life Center and teach the very program that I went through.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so when we're done recording, I want you to give me the physician's name just so I have that in case I run into anybody who needs a good referral
Hmm.
for somebody who has that level of compassion and
Yeah,
understanding for their patients. So I think
I
that's just
will.
amazing, and bless his heart for doing that.
Hmm.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you is, even though, yeah, okay, I'm rolling my eyes, I got all my lists of medications, all my symptoms and stuff, so I'm going
Right.
to this alternative center. When you heard those words, yes, we can help you, what went through your mind, or what was your reaction?
I was shocked because I was so used to being the person that no one could help. I was so used to being that problem case, that big mystery. And
Mm-hmm.
I was baffled at the fact that they looked at my paperwork and they looked at me and kind of just gave me this quizzical look like, and actually, here's what happened. My now mentor, he looked at me and he said, "Why are you doing this to yourself?"
Oh.
And I went silent and it hit me. I said, "Oh, oh."
Mm-hmm.
No one has ever asked me that before. And I've been to all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of therapists, used to be a therapist myself, all kinds of Western functional
Mm-hmm.
alternative practitioners, and no one ever asked me, why are you doing this to yourself? I didn't know that there was a me in any of this. I didn't want to know that. And when he
Mm-hmm.
said that, it clicked that there, you know what, Josie? You might have something to do with the very reason why you have these conditions. And I knew it deep down inside how I felt, the turmoil that I was experiencing, the beating myself up I was doing internally day in and day out, and how much I hated myself and didn't like who I was, and
Mm-hmm.
always was picking myself and putting myself down, and just so how my anxiety and how depressed I was feeling and down all the time. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to put two and two together that that
Mm-hmm.
might just be having some kind of ex expression in my physical body. And so when he said, "Why are you doing this to yourself?" It clicked because I always knew that there was a connection between my emotional state and my stress and my physical health. Yet no
Mm-hmm.
practitioner, no doctor, no specialist had ever bridged that connection between what was going on internally inside of me and my physical health. And at that moment, it clicked, and I knew, oh, this is different.
Mm-hmm.
And I was all in.
Boy, I have a lot to say about that, and I'm not sure if I can go through my thoughts in a cohesive way, but I'm going to try. First of all, I just had to go back to that, going to all the doctors and all the appointments and nobody knowing exactly, what to do with you. And
Yeah.
it's almost like, as a medical professional, like I said, I've been in the field a long time. You don't want to be that one person who the practitioner looks at their schedule for the day and goes, oh God, she's coming in today. What am I going to do with her? And, that's basically how you feel, as a practitioner, and probably how you feel as a patient. Why am I even going here? Why am I doing this when there's nothing that they can
Yeah.
give me? They can't give me any hope. Did you ever feel at any time that they were almost dismissing your symptoms, or just kind of like moving you on to somebody else because they didn't know what to do?
Yeah. The way I would describe it, Cheryl, is I felt like kind of like a cattle, like a cow, kind of going through the grates, just one after another after another. I would, after I left my job because of my basically because of how many appointments I had every day, I
Oh.
just spent my days going to all different kinds of practitioners here in the Denver area for my different appointments, and I would have, blood work, different practitioners, maybe, acupuncture, therapy, all kinds, like nutritionists, going to all these appointments. And it just felt like I was doing all these things to check off the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And here's something that I found in retrospect that I know is true for myself and a lot of people out there with chronic health conditions is I know I really worked on making it look like I was doing something. So I would just go
Mhm.
to all of these doctors, go to all these people to tell the people in my life, look, guys, I'm trying. Look everything I'm doing, and no one has any answers for me. Poor me.
Mhm.
Oh, look at me. And yes, I did feel like the doctors were just kind of passing me on to the next person. But I had conditions that they couldn't help because they're
Mhm.
chronic. They have no solution. Doctors
Mhm.
have no solution for chronic health conditions and for autoimmune disorders. So, if
Mhm.
I'm honest, the problem was me continuing to do something that clearly wasn't working just to make
Mhm.
it look like I was doing something.
Mhm. So that, but when that practitioner said to you, when you went to a new life, is that what it is? A
A
new
new
life
life
center.
center. Mhm.
When you went to, and the guy looked at you and says, "Why are you doing this to yourself?" Did you feel did you feel intimidated or insulted, or did you feel liberated?
I think there's a hint of, if I'm honest, a hint of insult. Like, how dare he even think to question my conditions and my, but I was so, it was also very grateful. Like, oh, finally someone's calling me out.
Mm-hmm.
Finally someone's calling me out. My big secret that I know that there's something that I'm doing, or let's be honest, not doing, that's causing these
Mm-hmm.
conditions. No specialist, no doctor would ever even have the idea to mention that. And so when
Mm-hmm.
he said that to me, I trusted him because I said, "Oh, he knows that I know that there's that I'm actually, these are coming from me."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't know how or why, but in a very unconscious way, I knew that I had something to do with it. That I had something to do with the reason I had all these
Mm-hmm.
conditions. They weren't random. It wasn't my genetics.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, the food I was eating. It was me. And the great thing I've found in working with all the people I have is that we all deep down think that this is our secret, that we're the only ones who know that we might have be some player in the equation of our
Mm-hmm.
chronic health or autoimmune conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And but we all know it's true, and we don't want to tell anyone because we think it's just
Mm-hmm.
our little thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a
Do
little
you think
upset,
though?
but
Do you think that your training as a
mhm.
counselor and your education, your background, your experiences working as a therapist yourself, do you think that that helped you see the light? Whereas somebody like myself who would have gone in and, if I heard that, I would have just been like, who would ever want this life? And why is this person telling me that I'm doing this to myself? Because, of course, I was never trained in the mental health field. Mine was purely in the physical health.
Mhm. Oh, did that benefit me, or you believe, or like if that helped me
Understand, right?
understand? I would say, if anything, it probably worked against me
Oh.
because of that training that was so against what I would, I was taught and trained in, that I feel that that actually worked against me. And so I'm very grateful that I was able to crack and to know that there was truth in that and
Hmm.
stay, because I worked with all different kinds of people, and they all come to this awareness at some point that there was a me in the creation of this condition. And
Hmm.
my perspective and our understanding here at a New Life Center is it's the suppression of our stress,
Hmm.
and that emotional overload of suppressed stress that cause these conditions, and that they didn't just randomly happen. And I see all
Hmm.
kinds of people coming to this awareness. So it definitely wasn't unique to me. And I do
Hmm.
believe actually that my therapy background was not of benefit when it came to that awareness.
Okay.
I was a little bit of a harder egg to crack than some, let's say.
So, how did you begin? I mean, what was there? Is there a program? Is there a specific, I don't want to say protocol, but certain steps, that you go through? What was that like when it was like, okay, I've played a role in this, and that's kind of, hard to swallow. But the
Be
good
hard to
news
swallow.
is I have the power to turn things around. And now I have a team who knows how to help me do it. So, what were like some of the first steps? Because I know someone in the audience is probably thinking, okay, well, this sounds great, but how did it happen? It just didn't happen overnight. So, what
Yeah,
was the process like?
great question. So the first was just that awareness that these conditions were coming from me, that they weren't
Mhm.
given to me, they weren't happening to me, but they were coming from me. And just like you shared, Cheryl, from that awareness, I became empowered. And I knew that if they were coming from me, then I could uncreate them. I could undo them. Whereas if they were coming from these mystery sources, like we're all told
Mm-hmm.
out there, then unfortunately there's nothing we can do about it. So
Mm-hmm.
step one was knowing that these conditions were coming from me and that
Mm-hmm.
they were coming from a lifetime of suppressed stress that I had not dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was someone that I would, if you would have asked me at that time, are you stressed? I would say, oh, not really, or I'm very calm. I do yoga, but what I have found is if we have a chronic health condition or an autoimmune disorder, it's an unequivocal sign that we are under an immense amount of stress and our
Mm-hmm.
body's living in the sympathetic nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
period.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my body was, and that's where all my conditions were born, all of
Mm-hmm.
my chronic health conditions. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to change.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do, and that's what I teach my students. And the program I took has now, been refined many times over, and it's now a
Mm-hmm.
10-week program that I teach.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's amazing. I mean, to me, that is such a ray of hope for people. I mean, 10 weeks is nothing when you've been struggling most of your life with these disorders and complications and pain and headaches. That's amazing.
yeah. Thank you. It's very exciting. We've got it so refined down, and everyone I work with have resolved their chronic conditions. So we have it to a point where it's just exactly what someone needs for their body to get into a parasympathetic nervous system place to heal and self-repair.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, like I said, I this works because I've lived it, but also because everyone I've worked with has resolved their chronic health
Mm-hmm.
conditions as well. And
Mm-hmm.
it's only 10 weeks. So it
Mm-hmm.
is a very short amount of time for many of us, almost a lifetime of chronic
Mm-hmm.
conditions. And all it you need to make that happen is education.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now a teacher, and what I teach is education, a different
Mm-hmm.
perspective on life and stress, so that we as humans, as individuals, can start to perceive and understand the very world we have as not chronically stressful, as not challenging and hard as it used to be. So
Mm-hmm.
when I change my perception and my experience of the very life around me, my body picks up on that. And when
Mm-hmm.
I no longer am perceiving my life to be hard and painful and challenging, a place where only bad things happen, well, then my body understands that and it finally gets out of fight or flight, out of the
Mm-hmm.
sympathetic nervous system into the parasympathetic nervous system, heals and self repairs. And so that's what I focused on with my students in those 10 weeks is education on stress, education on life, that will
Mm-hmm.
give their bodies that ability and that transformation of moving from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. And it
Mm-hmm.
truly is just kind of three kind of ways of looking at life differently. And really what I call building our resilience. And I can
Mm-hmm.
speak to that more because resilience is the reason that we're here as humans, and resilience or lack of resilience is the reason why those of us with chronic conditions and chronic illnesses, from my experience, haven't gotten better. It's because
Mm-hmm.
our resilience has gotten really low. So growing
Mm-hmm.
and building your resilience, and in 10 weeks is what I do, and that is the key for a body healing. And I can talk more about kind of how I made that shift. Not
Okay.
what people think.
Yes, and I do want to hear more about that. However, I always tell people that the body has an incredible capacity to heal itself as long as it is given the right environment to do so.
Mm.
And, my audience is very savvy and very sophisticated, but I would like for you to just touch a little bit more about, the sympathetic nervous system versus the parasympathetic nervous system. What happens in each and why it is so important that we do have the sympathetic nervous system to keep us safe, but the role of the parasympathetic nervous system and what happens when we get stuck in the sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah. Well, in a very simple nutshell, if you have a chronic health condition, you have a mental health condition, if you have an autoimmune disorder, it's just a sign that, again, like myself, that you have suppressed your stress inside your body. And what happened to all of us, kind of like a layer cake, is that we continued to suppress our stress until eventually there was no physical room anymore inside of our bodies for any more
Mm-hmm.
suppressed stress. And we all reached a tipping point. and we suppressed one more big stressor. And that was one too many. Mine was graduating college. That was my tipping point for my conditions. And we all had a tipping point. And from that point forward, our body tipped over into living full time in a nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system. Now, the sympathetic nervous system is a very helpful nervous system because it's where fight or flight, our body's fight or flight response lives. And it's great if we're in an actual physical threat, if we're getting robbed or we're in a car accident or something where we need a quick accumulation of our resources to get us out of that situation or to fight off that threat or that predator. And that's what happens in fight or flight in the sympathetic nervous system. But unfortunately, for those of us who tip over, fight or flight is kind of an archaic response that hasn't updated to our modern day life. When we get tipped over in sympathetic, fight or flight picks up on your everyday chronic stress, like your jobs or your marriage or your the world events, thinks you're under a constant threat and has got locked in. So if you have a chronic health condition or an autoimmune condition, even if someone's in remission, they're currently in the sympathetic nervous system in fight or flight. And unfortunately, in that place, the body's in a complete state of dysregulation. So what happens in the body in the sympathetic nervous system, cortisol, our body's stress hormone gets pumped out very unnatural rate. For those of us women, that really messes with our metabolism, our female hormones. Our immune system goes into a dysregulation. For those with autoimmune, it starts attacking different organs in your body. So you get autoimmune conditions. Your digestive system also is dysregulated. So we get things like leaky gut, food allergies, food sensitivities, SIBO, constipation, bloating, just to name a few, candida. The worst part, though, is trapped in the sympathetic, the body can't heal and the body can't self-repair. So it gets stuck in this nervous system. You're in complete dysregulation. Your body can't get better. And that's where your chronic health conditions have come from and your autoimmune disorders come from, or mental health conditions come from. And unfortunately, alternative and Western medicine all work out of that sympathetic nervous system place. So that's why they give us symptom management. That's why we're told here's some medication, or here's a food diet, or here's a cleanse. Here's something to manage the symptoms of a condition that we don't know how to get you better from, because in the sympathetic nervous system, you can't get better from your conditions. So the way out is we have to turn off fight or flight so we can get out of the sympathetic. The reason you're stuck in fight or flight, chronic stress. Your body is picking up that you are under a constant stress of your everyday life and is keeping you locked in there because it thinks it's helping you. And so when we eliminate our experience of chronic stress, build our natural resilience and our ability to be adaptive and to bounce back quickly in times of stress, the body picks up on that. Fight or flight finally turns off and someone enters into the parasympathetic nervous system, where the body naturally heals and self-repairs itself. Is a nervous system where the body regains homeostasis. And in that homeostasis, the immune system goes back to normal, cortisol regulates, digestive system goes back to normal. All chronic health conditions, mental health conditions, autoimmune disorders that were developed in the sympathetic all naturally resolve, as do all of our symptoms like, chronic pain, fatigue, brain fog, hair loss, body pain, cold and hot abnormalities. And a good thing in the parasympathetic, the body's always in a state of healing and self-repairing. So you get in that nervous system, you stay in there, the body resolves the conditions, and you don't have to worry about getting more conditions down the road. So I teach people, my program teaches people how to move from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system. And living in the parasympathetic nervous system is why 8 years later, I no longer have any of these conditions. I'm not in remission. I don't have them anymore in my body. My body's gone back to normal functioning. So that's in a large nutshell, but that is kind of for all the listeners, the incredible importance of the sympathetic parasympathetic nervous system and the role that it plays in a body healing naturally from chronic health conditions.
So the body loves to be in homeostasis. And it will fight to get to that point until it just has to throw up its hands and say, so sorry, your sympathetic nervous system is just overpowering us. There's nothing we can do. Boom, shut down.
Yeah. That
Eh,
just
go
we
ahead.
we we get into that sympathetic place because think of it, we're not handling our life well. We're
Mm-hmm.
historically not handling our stress well. So we've already degraded and worn down our body so much to the point that we
Mm-hmm.
tip over to the bigger conditions. That's an idea they call allostatic load, which
Uh-huh.
is the wear and tear after the accumulation of stress in our lifetime, the wear and tear that does in our physical
Right.
health and the worsening conditions. So I tell people the body's waiting to get in the parasympathetic nervous system. It wants to live there. It just can't when it's stuck in fight or flight in the sympathetic
Mm-hmm.
because it's perceiving you to be under a constant threat
Mm-hmm.
because of the stress of your everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
And the great thing is though that we don't need to leave our life because the stress is coming from us. So we have to change.
Mm-hmm.
We change and then our health changes. As we all know, you can leave jobs, leave a marriage, travel to a different country, but we still have ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're still going to have these conditions. We're still going to
Mm-hmm.
have our unhealthy stress responses. So we have to change.
Yeah. One of my clients once actually told me, you can't run away from yourself.
Exactly. There I am. Wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to ask you is once came into this place of total health and, I'm going to say resolved all of your issues, not gone into remission, but absolutely completely eliminated them. Were people around you surprised? What did you ever go back to any of your doctors and let them know, hey, I'm fine, or your physicians, your family, your friends? What was the reaction? I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think just kind of shock and misunderstanding, like, how could this be? I just actually stopped seeing most of my doctors after a while. It was very clear to me I didn't have these conditions. But for my family members, it was kind of an odd response. Almost confusion and questioning, like, how could this be? Is this even possible? Because they were just so used to me being the sick person, the one that
Mm-hmm.
needed all the help, the one that needed the extra
Mm-hmm.
attention, the one that needed the special food cooked on Thanksgiving because she couldn't eat any of the other stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
let's just say that I find in friendships and in families and relationships, we all have a balance. And when I became healthy, it disrupted the balance that was in my family and was in my friendships. And so, in a very odd way, I wasn't met with the joyful excitement that I thought I would be met by many people. I was actually met with, confusion and distrust and not misunderstanding. And so it took some time to regain a balance because I had a role and I was the sick
Mm-hmm.
person. And when I became the healthy person, it threw everything around. So
Mm-hmm.
I was not prepared for that. And I do see that with all of my students. I have to prepare them for, like, you get healthy for you. You don't get
Mm-hmm.
healthy for your family members or for your
Mm-hmm.
loved ones because you might find that they might not be reacting to your healing and health in the same ways that you thought they would.
I
That
remember having coffee with a girlfriend of mine who had watched me go through a really, really rough patch. And I was on the other side and I was so excited. And I was just like so happy to tell her. I said, can you tell anything is different? And she looked at me and she kind of gave me a very quizzical look. And she goes, you look and sound a little manic to me.
mm,
And I thought, oh, okay, see ya. And it's like she couldn't even give me that. Yeah, you look better. I can tell that you feel better. It was just like, well, you look and sound manic. So it was like she
yeah.
wanted to put another label on me that, oh, okay, now she's psychotic. I mean, it's just really, really weird the way
Mhm.
people did react when you turn your life around like that. And I don't understand it except that, like you said, you have a role to play.
Yeah, yeah. I had a role to play, and like
Mm-hmm.
similar to what you talked about, that I mean, quite honest, very frankly, that I have found that people in our lives, and this is from my experience, like my mom, I love her, but she liked me being sick.
Mm-hmm.
She liked that I was weak and was controllable and needed her. And I find that with almost all the people I work with, whatever age, that we have people in our lives who love us and who mean well, but they like that when we're not doing well, that we need them. You
Mm-hmm.
depend on them. We're the weak ones. We need their guidance. We need their help. We need their
Mm-hmm.
support. And when we become healthy, we don't need them in the same ways.
Mm-hmm.
And they find that incredibly threatening. They can find that very threatening
Right.
and react in these almost absurd ways. You think, why are you not happy for me? Well, the dynamic of the relationship is they were needed and they are no longer
Right.
needed anymore. And so for myself and for my mom and other family members, we've had to find a new dance. And some of
Mm-hmm.
those relationships I've found, oh, wow, I've left some of those relationships
Mm-hmm.
and left some of those friendships because I could see that they had a very unhealthy dynamic
Mm-hmm.
of need and of me being that ill person. And when I
Mm-hmm.
became healthy and empowered,
Mm-hmm.
that relationship shifted. So kind of untalked about things out there.
One of my recent guests said in a podcast episode, she called it the dance of dysfunction.
Mm, yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's a really good phrase. I said, I'm going to use that again. And there were two words that you used that really caught my attention. And that one is the controllable, that you were controllable when you needed your mom. And a lot of other people who might be in that situation where they're experiencing chronic pain, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders, that because you are sick, not well, not healthy, that you are a little bit easier to control and manipulate because you're so vulnerable when you are in that situation. The other word that you used that actually just made my heart sing, and that was when you were referring to your students, because they are not patients,
Oh,
they
they're
are
students.
students. Yeah.
Yeah, they're students. Yeah, I feel very strongly about that. And so to offer what you just said about being controllable, yes, I was much weaker clearly at
Mm-hmm.
those states. And at the same time, I have to take responsibility. Like I didn't want to live my life. I was scared of life. I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
to go out there. So I very much created the very situation where with my mom being in that dominant place of her
Mm-hmm.
taking care of me in my late 20s, of me leaving my job and not being employed. I made those situations happen because I was scared of life and didn't want to get
Mm-hmm.
out there. So I do like to be very clear about that.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, those are my students. The way out for me and what I teach is through education.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't involve food diets. It doesn't involve medication. It doesn't involve another cleanse or more blood work. We just,
Mm-hmm.
from my perspective, need to learn a new way of how to handle life,
Mm-hmm.
and look at life in a new way. And that's what I teach.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for me, one of the biggest things for me, Cheryl, and for all the women out there who are listening, because this is for men and women, but this is mostly a woman thing I find, is I
Mm-hmm.
learned something that I'd never done before that was instrumental in helping my body heal and self repair and building that natural resilience. And that was, I call the power of planning. And I know we think of planning as like scheduling in things in a calendar, and
Uh-huh.
that's not what I'm talking about here. It's realizing that the reason that I'm speaking for myself, got these conditions is that there were clear stressors in my life that I knew were going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't plan for, that I didn't prepare for, that I either barreled through or hid from. Things like graduating college or a relationship or starting a new job or, all kinds of things, buying a home. We
Mm-hmm.
just barrel into, we just run through, we don't plan for them. And then what happens? We have very stressed and very dysfunctional responses to these stressors, which
Mm-hmm.
again reinforces our body in that sympathetic state and
Mm-hmm.
reinforces our conditions. So the biggest way out that I found was to start to slow down and to do something that no one's ever taught us to do. And it's to look at what can I anticipate happening? What stressors can I anticipate in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
To slow down and write those down, and then to start planning for them, to not just hide from them and hope they don't happen. I mean, these are going to
Mm-hmm.
things like loss of loved ones, things we don't want to
Mm-hmm.
think about, but they're going to happen. Loss of loved ones, maybe changes of jobs, maybe it's a promotion, maybe it's having a child or becoming a grandmother or moving to a new place.
Mm-hmm.
And talk about what is the stress that this is bringing up, and then most importantly, what can I do to prepare for this? What
Mm-hmm.
do I need to do now to get ready for the stressors I have coming up? Whether that's the holidays in a few months, or whether that might be a big move you might be having in a year or
Mm-hmm.
two. What do I need to do to prepare? And in that planning process, that's in enacting and building our resilience, our
Mm-hmm.
ability to be adaptive, to bounce back in these known and foreseen stressors so that
Mm-hmm.
our body can stay calm and again can make that switch over to the parasympathetic nervous system and
Mm-hmm.
start to heal and self repair itself. So it's, to me, the power of planning has been
Mm-hmm.
instrumental in helping me do life and handle
Mm-hmm.
life in healthy and constructive ways, in
Mm-hmm.
resilient ways, which has again completely changed my health. And if that's all I taught my students was the power of planning, that's
Mm-hmm.
enough for their body to make that shift from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic.
I'm going to add another stressor to that list.
Mm.
Retirement.
Oh, great one, Cheryl. Thank you. That's a big one. Yes.
Yeah, my husband
Yes.
retired last October. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And, everybody thinks retirement, it's just going to be, great and everything's
Exactly.
wonderful. And it's a huge adjustment.
Yes.
And I think he's probably adjusted a lot easier or more quickly than I have, but it's really, it's one of those things you don't think about. You think about planning for retirement and you think about doing the financial planning and blah blah blah, but it's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
So that's
That's
a big one.
that's a great point. I like that you bring that up because we oftentimes like to think of stressors as just the obviously negative ones,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
stress can also come in packages that look positive, such as vacations and
Mhm.
marriage and birth of a child, retirement, buying a
Mhm.
second home. Again, all
Mhm.
things that our society says, oh, how great or how fun or how wonderful. But of course, those are also stressors as well. And
Mhm.
again, if we suppress the experience of them, don't plan for them, that is setting us up for a recipe of disaster when it comes to creating these chronic conditions, or if we already have them, reinforcing them and
Mhm.
reinforcing our body in that sympathetic state and causing us to become very fragile and anti resilient.
Mhm. Do you ever work with anyone who with alopecia? Have you ever seen any alopecia students?
That's a great question. I have not worked directly with anyone with alopecia. What I have worked with was hair loss that's a symptom of autoimmune conditions.
Okay.
Hair loss is a very something I had.
Mhm.
People can see me. I had we call them widow's peaks, but lots of hair and lost a lot of my hair. So I find with my students, it's very common to have hair loss. And
Mhm.
so if it's an autoimmune from an autoimmune place that hair loss is, then yes, I have worked with that. But if it's not
Mhm.
from the autoimmune, then that is not something that I work with. But hey, if it's autoimmune, the great news is get in the parasympathetic nervous system, your body heals and self repairs, and your hair will grow back. I
Mhm.
see it time and time again, and that's what I've experienced myself. And now I have kind of a wild mane these days. I even have to get it thinned.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and I was literally losing my hair in handfuls during my autoimmune days.
Oh
So,
man. How long has it been since you've been, let's just call it this, name it autoimmune free?
oh, I love that. I actually call it that. I've been
Oh,
autoimmune
really?
free for almost 8 years now.
Wow.
And I do like to tell people I don't take any medications. I don't do any special food diets. I eat just a normal healthy diet. I'm not like gluten free, sugar free, or any of those
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
take any supplements. So
Mm-hmm.
my body is completely healthy and it functions normally. And I don't need to do anything to keep it there other than how I approach life. And again, planning, looking ahead,
Mm-hmm.
preparing for my life, building and activating that natural resilience that we all have as
Mm-hmm.
humans. Um, and also just seeing life in a new way,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that my life is full of stress, everyone's life is full of stress. That's life. So I need to learn how to approach my life differently. And
Mm-hmm.
when I do that, that's my key.
And you are the picture of health and vitality, I have to say.
Thank you.
So, Josie, where can people find you?
Great. Yeah, I love to hear from people. So I know what I do and teach defies or what people say is possible out there. We're told we can't get better from these health conditions. So naturally, when people listen to me talk, it brings up a lot of questions. They're like, well, what about this? And what about that? Or
Mm-hmm.
what about me? Am I different? I like to tell people this does not, you're no different, no matter how long you've had your conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Or how bad you feel that they are. If they're chronic health conditions, if it's an autoimmune disorder,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm sharing to you, sympathetic to the parasympathetic, is the journey your body can take and needs to take, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
simple. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to reach out to me, you have questions about what I'm talking about, please email me. I love to hear from people. And you can reach me at Josie, that's Josie, at thehashimotosfix.com. And I'll spell that out, TheHashimotoSfix.com. And also find me at my website, thehashimotosfix.com. And in that, you can learn about my 10-week program that I offer. Again,
Mm-hmm.
everyone I work with does get better. And I like to let people know I also have a chronic symptom resolution program. So I work with people with Hashimoto's because it's the most common autoimmune disorder for women. But I work with all people with different kinds of autoimmune conditions and chronic health
Mm-hmm.
conditions. So don't let the word Hashimoto's steer you away. What I do works with autoimmune, works with chronic health issues. So reach out to me, check out my website. Love to share, love to hear from people, and get you better.
That is an incredible success rate.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's true. And my youngest student is 8. My oldest has been
Oh,
74. So we're working with all kinds out there: single moms, entrepreneurs, lawyers, students, grade school kids. We all are people who just, again, cut from that same cloth, don't know how to
mm-hmm.
handle stress. And I teach you how to do life and handle stress so your body can heal and self repair in that parasympathetic nervous system.
Oh, that's that again. I'm just, my heart is starting to just sing again. Josie, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your
Yeah.
wisdom and your experience and, your whole journey with us. It's just been amazing.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. And it was just great to meet you, Cheryl. Great to meet the Femininja audience out there, women, and hopefully some men out there too. And I hope to hear from you all.
And, just so the listeners know, Josie and I are just probably a few blocks from each other right now.
Yes.
And I would
Wonderful.
love to be able to meet you in person someday. We'll go have a cup of coffee and just share some more stories and stuff.
I would love that. That would be great, Cheryl.
And everybody, thank you so much for being here, Josie. I can't thank you enough. It's been great. Wonderful information.
Thank you.
And everybody, thank you so much for listening. As always, I really appreciate you. And do check out Josie's website. I was on it this morning, and she has a lot of valuable information, a ton of really good blogs. There's so much that you can learn from her. And do contact her if you or anybody you know is suffering from chronic pain, chronic illness, any type of autoimmune disorder, Hashimoto's. There's a whole slew of conditions that Josie can help you heal yourself. And that is incredibly empowering when you can take charge of your own health and your own life. And that is the way of the Femininja.